this Tales from the Vault. I'm going to discuss my grandparents passing. Then when my grandmother passes, there's an inheritance issue and it basically destroys the family. And I want to start this off by saying that this is not an excoriation of anybody. I don't think that this is not intended to be like, oh, this person's bad, look what they did. This is so not it. A lot of things in my life that are experiences that have had to deal with, like when financial stuff goes bad, all revolves around this one central thing: desperation. Good people can get into desperate situations and make terrible decisions. It's just kind of a common theme. The biggest thing I've seen in my life, and I've made terrible decisions too, was when you're desperate, you must keep the morality and ethics. So, to go into that, I have a mentor, and when I go see my mentor and we have discussions or whatever, or I have an issue that I need to discuss, I'll sit down and say, hey man, you got a minute? I got something I need to discuss with you. I got a question. Before I can say the question, very, very fast, his first response every time, hands down, is do the right thing. Shouldn't need any advice, but whatever you need advice on. Because that is the underlying theme of when you get into bad situations. If you do the right thing, you will wind up far better off in the end. When you get dishonest or underhanded or manipulative, it only blows the bomb up quicker in your hands. If a bad event's happening, if you have bit off more than you can chew, if you're not going to get paid for a job, if whatever the is not your fault thing or is your fault thing, morality, ethics, doing the right thing will play out in your favor better in the end. People fail every day. Very few businesses make it to the 5-year mark for a reason. There's so many things that can go wrong. It's common for new businesses to go bad. But those people that try to maintain their ethics and morality will have another day in the sun. So, with that, this story revolves around my uncle. He wasn't a bad guy. Got desperate, he made some bad decisions, and it just snowballs into a worse and worse affair. So this is not to put him in a bad light, it's just to basically tell a story of making bad decisions and they adding up. So we'll get started. The story needs to start with my grandpa. What made him the way he was. So, in the Great Depression, his father left, just abandoned the family. He lost everything he had. There's another story to that, but whatever. So my grandpa is in the 9th grade in school, and he decides that he can't go to school anymore. He must do something to help his mom with all of his brothers and sisters. I think there's 7 of them. So he would go out, he'd work any job he could find to get any money he could to help his mama raise her kids. So with all this going on, he also has a brother that is in poor health. Uncle Reuben, as we called him, needed a special medicine growing up, had to always be taken with milk or some other type of actual food for it to work into his system. He's a very skinny guy, he's very like anemic or whatever. So not only were they completely broke, Grandpa would have to go out, beg the pharmacy for the medicine, beg the store for milk or whatever he could so Reuben could take his medicine and not pass away. Grandpa worked all throughout the Great Depression and ends up joining the Army because he finds out that they'll take care of him, they'll give him somewhere to live if he's on base, and they'll send his check home to his mama and she can use that to raise the kids. So while he's in the Army, he's good at infantry, he's real good at shooting a gun. He ends up, even before World War II broke out, he was in the Army. And he winds up training guys, infantry, and he winds up at Iwo Jima after we had taken the island from Japan. and he's running heavy equipment and stuff, and they're building the runway so we can get our bombers in there to be able to island hop all the way to Japan. That was the game plan for World War II, Pacific campaign. So, doing the infantry damages his hearing. Had no hearing protection, so when he comes out of the army and he's married to his new wife, his hearing is bad. It doesn't last but about 10 years because he's farming and running tractors and still no hearing protection. So basically, by the time late 50s, early 60s come along, he's all but deaf. He had taught himself to use his eyes, read lips. Eventually, by the late 70s and 80s, he'll get hearing aids. And between the hearing aids and learning how to read lips, he interacts with us. He can't really fluidly go through a conversation, but at times, he participates as much as he can. Since he couldn't participate a lot, he read. He read all the time. He'd get the Daily Record newspaper every day. We'd get Fayetteville News and Observer every day, Wall Street Journal. So we try to keep him with at least 3 newspapers a day and books and stuff he liked to read. As I'm in school, junior high, high school, whatever, those years, never failed that whatever I was learning in school, whether it be history, economics, politics, if I got confused or needed some questions answered, I could go sit at the kitchen table, just me and him, face to face, so he can watch, or bring my book so he can look through it, and he would explain to me what I needed to know or what his opinion was on it. And quite honestly, it was very few things that would stump this guy. He never had an IQ test, but I really wish he had been tested because he was amazing. He was amazing to me, of course, because he was my grandfather. But from just the general knowledge thing, he was a smart guy. So, in the 70s, like 73, he has a son that gets killed in a car wreck. Right before he gets killed in a car wreck, one of the guys he graduates high school with, Phil Davis from Fayetteville, goes out and becomes an insurance agent. He's selling insurance, life insurance, whatever he can sell. And he keeps hitting up my Uncle Jimmy. Jimmy, you need a life insurance policy. Jimmy had multiple farms, equipment, worked his butt off. So he at 23 years old, Jimmy had his own little estate going on. He was a very aggressive, very hard-working person. Phil gives him an insurance policy to review. He takes it to Grandpa, says, "Dad, what do you think about this?" Grandpa looks through it, says, "There ain't nothing to that. Toss it." A month later, Phil's been hitting Jimmy as hard as he can. Jimmy comes back with another policy. Says, "Dad, Phil says this is a good deal. We need to do this." Grandpa read it, and on the second policy he had brought in, it had a premium of like $12.65 a month for life insurance. Grandpa reads it, says what it'll do, and then he says, "Jimmy, there's no way for $12 a month you're going to be able to pay a company, and if something happens to you, it pays out any money." He said, "Those numbers don't make sense. Shouldn't do it." Against Grandpa's advice, a week later, Jimmy goes and meets with Phil on a Friday, signs the contract, cuts him a check, signs the check. Phil's got it, and come Monday, all the paperwork and stuff should be done, and Jimmy will be fully covered. Well, as life would have it, and it's crazy tale, Jimmy's killed Sunday morning about 8 o'clock, and a transfer truck hits him and kills him instantly in Fayetteville. The family's destroyed. The oldest son's, or the youngest, second in line's dead. Uncle Larry's the oldest, Jimmy's second. So Jimmy's dead, family's destroyed, blah, blah, blah. And a week or two after the funeral, Phil comes up to Grandpa and says, "Hey, we need to do some business. I got some stuff we need to discuss." And Grandpa's like, "I'm not in the mood to discuss business, Phil." He says, "No, you're a beneficiary. Jimmy had a life insurance policy with me, and we need to go through the paperwork and get it settled." Grandpa can't believe it. Knew nothing on it, whatever. Didn't want it. Didn't want nothing to do with the check. Thought it came from bad juju, whatever you want to call it. Grandpa cared nothing about it. About 6 months later, Phil says, I gotta settle this. I gotta finish this file, close the file. You need to take the check." So the insurance policy pays off all of Jimmy's equipment, all of Jimmy's farms that were financed with farm credit and banks, and it's $100,000 or $150,000 cash payment upon death, off of $12.65, and the check was not even deposited by the insurance company, but because that check was dated on a Friday and all of the paperwork was signed and dated on a Friday, Phil fought for that policy to be honored by the insurance company, and Grandpa becomes the beneficiary. This changes the financials of the family. Grandpa was a good businessman. He was smart, but we did have a small farm. It's only like 300, 400 acres. It's not a big, massive farm like we all think farmers run today. Where we're from, people had small farms, and you fed your family by controlling it and making it as efficient and profitable as possible to feed your kids and everything. So now as Grandpa's farming, he has gained a lot more equipment. He's gained debt-free land. It makes profitability a lot easier. As long as the years are good and the crops don't fail due to climatic reasons, and he makes good decisions, he's in a lot better shape. Grandpa then becomes profitable enough that he knows how much it takes to run the farm, how much to pay the taxes, how much extra to keep for help. He also knows how much extra he has to keep for Grandma to have some shopping sprees in the winter time. So that was Grandma's thing. She'd always want some nice new clothes, but whatever. So he would be left over with a surplus, a true profit. He would take the profit and go to different insurance companies, and he would shop for insurance policies. He would say he had $30,000 left over at the end of the year. He would go to Farm Bureau, Nationwide, all of these different companies, and he would say, hey, what kind of life insurance policy can I get for $15,000? Now at this time, Grandpa was as bulletproof as could be. If you shot him point blank with a shotgun, the barrel would have bent for some reason. The bullets wouldn't even have gone out towards him. He was just always that way. Even when he passes at 85, we can't believe it, and no one else can, because he had zero health complications up to that point, really. No, he wasn't even taking regular medicine. He wasn't a sick person. So anyway, over the years, he takes and buys these insurance policies, and when he's shopping for them, he would pit one insurance company against the other. Hey, these people will give me $30,000 worth of coverage for this much, or I can get $100,000 for this much, and just trying to be a good consumer and work the deal as best as he could. And when he passes, there is a substantial amount of money there off of life insurance policies. So, all of this assumes or masses into his estate. He passes, it goes to Grandma. Grandmother passes. It's now to be inherited by the children, the heirs, 3 kids: David, Larry, Joanna.